Casino, almost live. Just coming off of his tour of the beautiful cities of Centerline, Toledo, and Steubenville, here he is, the man whose stories we love to hate. Here's the star of our show. Here's Manny.
I'm a storyteller, as everybody in the audience probably knows. One of my favorite stories starts like this. The guy comes in from the old country, arrives in New York, can't speak English. His friend meets him, who had been here a year earlier and has lined up a place for him and a job. Comes in and says, hey, I'll take care of it. Comes in, he says, tomorrow you start work at the factory on the assembly line. He says, you're going to sit on the assembly line there and you can do something and they'll tell you exactly what to do. He says, but I can't speak. He says, don't worry, they'll explain it. So he shows up for work the next day, reports to the boss, and the boss tells him this assembly line moves. You'll put these 2 bolts on these engines as they come by, and that's it. Boom, chicka boom. So he gets it down pat, right? He starts to work, first shift. Boom, chicka boom, chicka boom, chicka boom. All of a sudden, a loud sound. Boom. It is the lunch buzzer. They all go across the street and they start to order lunch. And so everybody's ordering. Hamburger, french fries, give me this, a malt, this. Sandwich, cheese sandwich, boom. We get to him, what do you want? He can't speak, so he goes, nothing. Goes back to work. 4 hours of the shift, he has no food, he is hungry, he barely makes it through the 8-hour shift. He gets home that night and he says, hey, look, I can't survive unless you teach me how to say something in English. He says, I can't go in there and not order lunch. I wouldn't make it the next shift. He says, fine. He says, how about this? Apple pie and a coffee. So he goes, apple pie and a coffee. And he practices all night. Apple pie and a coffee. Apple pie and a coffee. Apple pie and a coffee. Apple pie. He gets it down pat, goes to sleep. Gets up the next day confident. Goes to work. Boom, chicka boom, chicka boom, chicka boom, chicka boom. Lunch. They go across the street. He orders, or starts to order. Everybody's ordering. Get to him. What do you want? Apple pie and a coffee. The guy said, fine. Gives him apple pie and coffee. Sits down at the corner table. Man, it's great. He loves it. Eats apple pie and coffee. However, 6 months later, he's still eating apple pie and coffee for lunch. And his taste buds cry for something else. He wants to order something else. So he asks his buddy, please teach me to say something else. And so the guy says, okay, ham sandwich. So he practices. Ham sandwich. He gets it down. Oh, perfect. Practices all night. Ham sandwich, a ham sandwich, ham sandwich. He got it down. Goes to work the next day. Boom, chicka boom, chicka boom, chicka boom. Lunch. Zip. Get across the street. And the waiter says, and what would you have, sir? Boldly, he says, ham sandwich. The guy says, on rye or pumpernickel? Apple pie and coffee. Second story deals with the applause is deafening, folks. You have to do it. Okay, the second story deals with the same little guy who now wants to buy a house. He's worked for 5 years at the factory and he's saved up some money. He wants to buy a house. And so he goes to the real estate man. He says, I'd like you to buy a nicer house. And so the real estate man says, fine, we have a nice $50,000 special here. It's really a nice house. I think you'll like it. So he shows the little guy the house. And he walks in the place, and he starts to look at everything. He's looking under the chairs. He opens every closet in the house. He goes down to the basement. He goes up in the attic. He goes in every room in the house and looking through the chandeliers, everything. Really a thorough examination. So the real estate man says, wow, this guy's really some kind of a nut here. He's checking every brick practically. So he comes back. He says, what do you think of the house? The little guy says, it's a nice, but it don't got no halo statues. So the real estate man thinks to himself, halo statues? What's this guy got, a religious fetish of some kind? So he says, I'll show him a better house. So he shows him a $100,000 house. Little guy walks in that $100,000 house, and he goes through the same ritual again. He opens every cupboard, every closet, looks behind every furniture, the chandeliers, behind the drapes, upstairs, downstairs. Thorough examination. Comes back and says, what do you think of this house? He says, it's a nice, but it don't got no halo statues. The guy says, oh man, this guy's really religious. He says, maybe we ought to get some religious statues sent over, and then we'll put them on the house. So he calls up his associate and says, look, I want you to order 10 halo statues right from Rome, these marble ones with the saints. Have them sent over as soon as they get here. I think I got a sale because this guy really seems to want to buy it, but he's got this religious hang-up. And so they do. About 3 months later, these 10 statues come in the mail, crated, uncrate them. They take them up to a $250,000 home on the top of the hill, and they plant them right in front of the door of this big house, right? It goes up a hill, and these 10 statues. And so they call a guy up, and he comes in, the little guy walks right through the statues, gets inside the house again, and starts to look. Do the same thing again. He starts to look through every room, every door, every closet, opens doors, furniture, lamps, everything. Gets done, the guy says, well, what do you think? Nice, huh? He says, it's nice, but it don't got no halo statues. He says, are you kidding? He says, look, we spent $50,000 to transport these 10 statues from Rome. What do you mean no halo statues? They're right on the front of the lawn. Can't you see? Little guy says, no, not that kind, this kind. Hello, statue. Thank you. Hey, good. Okay, the third story deals with the little guy now a few years later. He's married and has a couple children, has one child rather, and he calls up, and this is, you gotta visualize the phone here, dials a birth certificate place and says, hello? Birth certificate place? Last year, my wife has to have a bambino. We like the name of the bambino Tom. I get the birth certificate back. On the birth certificate it says a Thomas. This year my wife is having another bambino. We like the name of the boy Jack. No slip-ups, please. The deafening roar of the laughter. I will not explain these, folks. Remember, these are top-notch stories. They'll need explaining. Okay, the next one. Same guy. Walking down the street. He's now going to night school. Okay, he's going to night school, taking some classes. He bumps into a buddy of his who we know had gone to night school the year before. And he bumps in and says, Salvador, what are you doing? He says, I'm going to night to school. He says, what, are you taking some kind of course? I like it. Yeah, I said, taking anatomy. He says, yeah. He says, I took that course last year too. He says, say something in anatomy. He says, what is that anyhow, anatomy? He says, I learned, I had the course, but I don't know what it means. He says, oh, it's about your body. Oh, he says, now I know the course. He says, all about your body. He says, you look at it, you got a skeleton, you learn about all of your body. It's anatomy, you know, you learn about stuff like that. He says, oh, good. He says, say something in anatomy. The guy goes, ooh, I got something in my look. The other guy said, what? He says, that's not how you say that, the dumbbell. He says, ooh, I got something in my seat. He says, how come you're so smart? He says, remember I took that course the last year? He says, I keep everything up here in my foot. Hey, we're getting there. Okay, next. Same little guy. Travels on Air Italia. Italian Airlines, right? And he's going from Italy to the United States. And they're flying over the ocean. And all of a sudden, he's sitting in his seat there, and there comes the loudspeaker. Hello, this is your captain, Mangiapane. We're flying at 30,000 feet. Says, we got a nice airplane with the wings with a 4-engine. And they're going like it is, nice and level. He says, we got a nicer, softer seat. We got a good food. We got some pizza for you. We got a nicer looking stewardess. You can flirt with the stewardess you like. You can look out the window, see the ocean down below. Look up and see the nicer blue sky. Read a book. We got a lot of good books. Enjoy yourself. I'll get back to you later. Hello, this is your Captain Mangiapane again. We got one slight problem. The airplane is flying nice, but we got one engine to burn out, so a little tipsy when they're riding like this. He says, don't worry about a thing. You keep reading your book, eating your lunch, you're chasing the girls up and down, look at the ocean, look up there. Everything's fine. Don't worry about a thing. No problem. About 10 minutes later, hello, this is your Captain Mangiapane. We got one more problem, one more engine to burn out, but don't worry, it's the auto one. We balance the nice. We got a one on each side. The plane is flying a nice and level. He says, do everything you're doing, eating, drinking some wine, chasing the girls, look outside, enjoy yourself. Don't worry about a thing. 10 minutes later, hello, we got another slight problem, one more engine to burn out. We only got one engine left, a little tipper like it is. He says, but don't worry about a thing. He says, but for precautionary sake, all people can swim. Get on the right side. All people cannot swim on the left side. Just a precaution. Don't worry about a thing. 10 minutes later, hello, April a day. He meant to say May Day, but he couldn't say it, so it's April a day. The plane isn't going to crash. Don't worry about a thing. The plane will crash into the ocean. The people on the right side are going to swim. There's an island a mile that way. Swim to the island. People on the left side who cannot swim, thank you for flying Air Italia. Okay, now, the same little guy lives right across from a golf course. He sees guys going in and out of the golf course every day, and he says, hey, summer days, I'd like to play that game. He said, looks so nice. And so one day he notices like nobody's out there. And so he knows his neighbor's got some golf clubs. He borrows some golf clubs. He takes the golf clubs and he sneaks in the golf course. He gets on the golf course. He gets on the first tee. And he had been watching these golfers for a couple of weeks, and he knew what they do. So he puts the ball down. He hits the ball and starts to play golf. And walks. He gets to the ball. He gets to about the third hole, and all of a sudden he hits the ball and he slices it right out of the park. It hits a little old lady with a grocery basket walking from the grocery. Almost kills her. She lays flat on her. People are all looking, giving her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. So the little guy walks over to the fence and sees the lady there. Says, okay, plays another ball, because that's how you play it. It's a lost ball. You play another ball. So he puts the other ball down and hits that thing off, plays off. Gets to about the seventh hole. Again, he slices it right out of the ballpark. Some guy driving in a convertible on the street hits him right on top of the head, causes a 15-car accident. The cars are all mangled, everything on it. He walks over to the fence and says, oh, well, drops another ball, because that's what they do when they lose a ball. They put another ball down, zoop, plays it. Gets to about the 12th hole. Again, he slices the ball. Zoop, right out of the park. It goes, hits a picture window of a $250,000 home, bounces around, wrecks the piano, wrecks a couple of real expensive vases, and boom, and he walks over to the place again, looks there, well, drops another ball, plays. Well, back in the clubhouse, the pro of the course is hearing all these wild stories. There's some wild man loose on the golf course. So he is now waiting on the 18th hole, waiting for this guy to come up, right? And so he's waiting like this on the 18th hole, like this. The little guy just walking around like nothing's happening, playing his ball, gets up to the last tee. He says, hey, you. The golf pro says to him, me? Yeah, you. Get over here. You're the guy on the third hole, hit that ball, hit that old lady, almost killed her? Third hole. Yeah, that was me. He says, but I played the right to shot. He said, when I lost a ball, I put another ball. I played a penalty stroke. I played it right. He says, you're the same guy on the seventh hole, hit that ball, hit that guy on top of the head in the convertible, caused a major accident? Yeah, that's me. He says, that's me. He says, yeah, but I played it right. I played another ball. I lost the ball. I played it. It's a penalty stroke. I played on. You're the same guy on the 12th hole, hit that ball out of bounds and hit that picture window, ruin that guy's house? Yeah, that's me. He says, well, I played the ball. He said, you told me to play extra thing. I know how to play the game. I watch those guys that play extra ball and take a penalty stroke. He says, well, what are you going to do about it? The little guy said, I'm thinking of changing my grip. All right. Two Italians, New York Harbor. Submarine perched there. One guy says, hey, is that a U-boat? The guy says, no, but just a look. Short ones. Those are short ones. Okay, next. Here we go. He has to borrow some money, the little guy. Of course, so he walks over to the bank. I'd like to see the bank president. The president comes out and says, can I help you, sir? Yeah, he says, I'd like to borrow some money, take a loan. I got to buy another house. The guy tried to cheat me out of one home to buy another house. He says, well, I'm sorry, sir, but the loan arranger is out to lunch. The little guy says, that's okay, I'll talk to Tonto. Next one. Now this one, the little guy goes to Washington. He gets to Washington and he sees this strange parade. He's never seen anything like it. It wasn't really a parade, it was a funeral procession. But he sees people standing there on the curb watching it, and on the street down Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, he sees a colonel with a crop and a German Shepherd dog at his right hand. He's walking on very solemnly. In front of him, two caissons with two caskets being drawn, very slow, and the drums beating. It's, of course, a funeral of some sort in Washington. And the little guy is watching all this. He can't understand what's going on. Two caskets, the colonel, the dog, and in back of this colonel, for 3 miles long, is one single line of men, just men only. It's the strangest looking funeral procession you ever saw. And he can't understand it, so he's trying to figure it out. He keeps following the colonel in the parade. He figures maybe sometime when they stop for something, he's going to kind of edge his way up and ask them what's going on, because nobody knows. And so they do. At one point, the colonel stops for a second, and he's with the dog and the two caskets in front. The little guy kind of edges up and says, hey, pardon me, he says, I'm a new United Snips. He says, it's a funny looking funeral procession. He said, who's the two caskets? And the colonel looks at him and says, well, happens to be my wife, my mother. Says they were killed 2 days ago by my dog. I said, that dog right here? Yeah. He says, I ordered breakfast and I wanted sunny side up. My wife gave me scrambled. I asked for orange juice. She gave me grapefruit juice. And so I started to complain about it. My wife and mother-in-law says, eat it or make it yourself. And they were angry with me. Well, my dog is very loyal to me. And the dog didn't like this. So the dog got angry, jumped up and killed them both right on the spot. The little guy says, holy smokes, that dog right there? That's the same. Oh, God. A nice looking dog. Jump up and go, kill your mother-in-law and your wife. That dog there says, He says, say, can I buy that dog? The colonel says, get in line. All right. I think we'll try the man who knew everybody. This is one of my favorite stories. Okay, next. This guy, Al, knows everybody. At least he brags about it. Everybody that talks to him says, hey, do you know this? Oh, yeah, I know him. You know, he's always dropping names. So his buddy Sam is getting a little perturbed one day. He says, wait a minute. He says, how can you possibly know everybody in the world? He says, I just do. I've been around, that's all. He said, oh, big deal. So they're having breakfast right here on Van Dyke, a little restaurant there, Ted Nugent's restaurant there. And they're having a hamburger, and as they're eating, everybody walks by, says hi to Al, right? The owner of the place, Al, what's happening? What's happening? An old lady is going shopping on the street, knocks on the window, waves to Al, right? The bus boys know him. Some lady walks in, hey, Al, what's happening? Everybody. The cook, hey, Al, what's happening? A dog walks by, barks, roof, roof, how you doing? A cat jumps up on the window, scratches the window, scratches hello to him. His buddy Sam says, man, you know quite a few people. He says, I know everybody. I told you that. He says, oh, big deal. I bet you don't know the mayor of Warren. He says, you kidding? Bonkowski and I were friends, went to school together. $50. So they bet $50. Sure, they go down to the city hall, and the mayor comes out, Al, where have you been? Boom. He knows him, so he gives him the $50. Oh, big deal. Knows a local politician. Okay, I bet you don't know Governor Blanchard. He says, you kidding? Blanchard and I went to school. We dated the same chicks in high school, everything. We knew each other. $100 bet. They fly down to Lansing. Sure enough, the governor. Al, where you been? I just seen you. This guy, $100. He lost another one. Okay, big deal. Okay, one more. $500, you don't know Ronald Reagan. He says, you kidding? I was in a couple movies with him. I did a couple bit parts in Bedtime for Bonzo. He says, yeah, $500. They fly down to Washington. Sure enough, the president, Ronald, how have you been? Boom, $500 lost. Now he says, wait a minute. I just noticed they're all politicians. Oh, he may have met all these at some kind of convention. He says, okay. He probably doesn't know anything about rock and roll, man. He doesn't know who the boss is. He says, okay, buddy, $5,000, you don't know boss. That's Bruce Springsteen. He says, you kidding? I used to play in his E-band down there in New York. What are you kidding? Played a few gigs with him. He says, okay, buddy, $5,000. They fly down to Washington, to New York, where he's having a concert in Central Park. In Central Park, 500,000 people hanging off the trees and chandeliers, and up on the stage is Bruce. And oh, and the music, oh, singing away like crazy, right? All of a sudden, in the middle of the song, he stops, says, hey, Al, what's happening? Out of 500,000 people, he picks Al out of the crowd and yells to them. And this buddy stands, oh, for God's sake. He gives him $5,000. He's really getting teed off now. So he goes on. Okay. He says, you don't know the Queen of England. He says, are you kidding? I used to date Betty before she met the prince there. He says, okay, $10,000, you don't know Queen Elizabeth. They fly to England, right? They get there, Buckingham Palace. The Queen comes walking down. Al, where have you been? Boom, he loses that one, $10,000. I can't believe this guy said. He said, wait a minute now. He says, I happen to know you're of the Jewish persuasion, as I am. There's one guy you don't know. You don't know the Pope. He said, you kidding? I knew him in Warsaw. Before he was a parish priest, we played marbles together, and then he went on to school. He became the Pope, and I became what I am, whatever that is. He says, okay, buddy, $25,000 you don't know the Pope. So they make the bet. They fly down to the Vatican. They get there, and Al tells his buddy Sam, now look, at noon, the Pope will come out on the balcony, and he will come out and bless the people. right? He'll be up on the balcony. People, it's like a ritual there. They have lunch. All the little Italian people, they mill around, they have lunch, the Pope comes out, blesses them, they go back to work, right? He says, at noon, I'll be on the balcony with the Pope, waving to the people. Is that good enough for the bet? He says, yeah, you won't even get up there. So sure enough, his buddy Sam goes down among the crowd, and he's milling around with the people down below, right, like this. All little Italian people eating their lunch and sitting on the benches, and he's kind of milling around. Sure enough, at noon, out comes the Pope. And who's next to him? Al. And he's waving to people, calling names out. Salvatore, hey, Stephanie, hey. He's naming all the names, even yelling names down, right? Down in the crowd, his buddy Sam is shaking his head. He cannot believe this. He knows him too. I can't believe it. And as he's standing there, some little Italian guy in the crowd punches him in the ribs and says, say, buddy, who's that up there with Al? Okay, I used to be an usher, and I wore a tuxedo then too. It was Motor City over on Van Dyke. There used to be like a theater, and they have some shows there, and I got my nice tuxedo on, right? And so this one day, 4 people come in, they got tickets, and it's like an Iggy Pop concert, really big stuff at that time. And so I have the 4 tickets that they spend, right? They spend $5 a piece on. So I come in the theater with my flashlight. You got to picture that. This is a theater. I get to these 4 seats. That's what these people bought the 4 seats. And here, laying face down, is a guy laying face down like he's saving the seats. And I go, hey, these people paid $5 for these seats. See? I got the tickets here, and you're kind of rude and ill-mannered to be laying across here. And he starts to say something. Mom, I think, okay, I'm getting the manager. So I walk back out, and I come back in. The manager now comes in, right? And the manager comes down and says, pardon me. Listen, you. These people paid $5 for these doggone seats, and you're rude and ill-mannered to be laying across. You're saving these $5. Where'd you come from anyhow? And the guy looks up and says, from the balcony. Getting a little better. Same little guy goes to the golf course. See, now he's become a member of it. Now he's playing pretty regularly. And he bumps into a guy. And the guy says, I'm quitting this stupid game. One guy says, why? It's too expensive. He said, first you got to pay $500 for golf clubs and shoes you got to buy. And then the worst part is you got to pay $20 for a dozen golf balls. He said, I'm sick of it. He says, I went out yesterday, I lost 2 dozen golf balls. That's $40 I lost. I can't take this. He said, I forget, I'm quitting the game. This guy's, wait a minute. Don't do that. He says, I got a ball here that is tremendous. See this little ball here? He says, you can hit this ball. If it starts to go out of bounds to the right, it's got a little gyroscope. It brings it right back and drops it right there in the fairway. The guy says, yeah, it's pretty good. If you happen to hook over it, right, the ball, the gyroscope, right in the middle of the fairway. What do you think of that? Wow, that's great. That ball you got? Yeah, this ball right here. He says, and then if you hit it in the water, it beeps and says, here I am. It's beautiful. You better not quit. This is the greatest thing, greatest invention in golf. He says, you shouldn't quit. You should get some of these balls. The guy says, boy, I'd like to have some of this. Where'd you get that one? He says, I found it. Okay, we're moving along at a fast clip. Now, this guy have been playing Pebble Beach for 25 years. Same golf course, and he could par every hole on the golf course except the 16th, which is like a little island hole. You got to hit over water, boom on there, and then all of a sudden, you putt after that. You go on a little boat, you get on it. And so this guy played every hole on the course, but parred everyone except that one. He'd take a 4, 5, 6, whatever it was, right? And so this day, it's Sunday again, time to get ready to get up. He looks out, it's raining cats and dogs, really coming down really tough. And so he says, good, I don't have to go out there and play that stupid course. He starts to go back to sleep. And as he starts to doze off, a voice speaks out and said, today is the day. Little guy jumps up. God is speaking to him. Today is the day. God, today, 16th hole, never make. God said, boy, this is it. So he hurriedly dresses, puts his golf clothes on, gets his golf clubs, he jumps in the car. It's still raining pretty hard. He jumps in, he drives to the first hole, and he gets up to the first hole. He starts to tee a ball up, and the voice says, what are you doing? He says, well, the first hole I'm playing. No, today is the day. Go directly to the 16th hole. And by this time, he's ecstatic. Oh, my God, man, it's going to be the day. So he drives over to the 16th hole, and he gets up there, and he waits for instructions. the voice says, put a ball on a tee. So he goes back to his bag, pulls out a ball, and he starts to grab a new ball, but they said, wait a minute. Well, takes out an old scrubbed up ball, all cut up, and starts to put it down, and he waits. The voice says, what are you doing? Well, he says, see, I played this course for 25 years. I've never gotten over the thing, and he says, I don't want to lose a good ball. It says $1.65 for a ball. So I put an old cut up one on. No! Place a new ball on the tee. So okay, he puts the old ball back, takes out $1.65 Titleist, he puts it on there, and he's waiting for instructions. And then the voice says, take 2 practice swings. So in golf, you kind of back off the ball a little bit, right? And he gets his club up and he's starting to take a swing. The voice says, put the old ball back on the tee. Okay, I also, let's see, a guy and his wife went golfing every Sunday, right? They get to this course, and they're playing, they get to about the 9th hole, the guy slices one into the woods. And he goes over there and he says, oh boy, now I got to play out on the fairway, I'm going to lose a stroke here. He starts to talk to himself. His wife says, wait a minute, dear. He says, you know, there is a opening right here, and there's a barn right here. If I open the barn doors, you can see the green right through there, and you can save yourself a stroke by hitting through there. You got that? He says, yeah, thanks, dear. That's really nice of you. So he does. So she opens the garage doors, and she stands back, and he takes a swing, and boom. He mishits the ball, hits her right in the head, and kills her instantly. A year later, he's playing the very same course. He gets to that 9th hole again, and he gets up and he slices it in the same spot. And the buddy he's playing with says, he's about ready to kid out, and he says, his buddy says, wait a minute, hey, hold it. Look, there's an opening here. If I open this garage door here, you can see right through there. You can see the green. You can save yourself a stroke. The guy said, oh, not me, man. Last year I played it that way. I took an 8 on the hole. We're coming to the home stretch, people. Okay. 2 Englishmen meeting on the street. Short story. Went by a house yesterday. Thank you very much. One of my favorite deals with 2 guys meeting in Texas, I guess it is. And he goes, hey, howdy, Tex. Where are you from? The other guy says, Louisiana. The guy says, Louisiana? Then how come they call you Tex? He says, I don't like that darn name, Louise. Okay. I got that one out of the way. Okay, now of course I end with my favorites, which are a few animal stories. In grade school I did a great act. I won a little trophy for it. I was the 2nd best act in all of the school. Everybody else was tied for 1st. Anyhow, this is the story that I told. It's a dog going by an open window. Okay, it took a lot of practice. I worked a couple of years on it. Here it is, picture a dog running by from this way, over here, a window here, you're inside, here it is. Now that same dog is thirsty and he's walking down Van Dyke and he decides he's going to have a beer. So he walks into John's Friendly Bar and he kicks the door open, walks in, sits down on a stool, says, give me a beer. Bartender looks around, looks at the dog, says, you are the dumbest dog I've ever seen. This is a people's bar. I serve people, not dogs, you dummy. And he grabs the dog by the collar and the tail, he throws him on Van Dyke. The dog almost gets hit by a couple of kids in driver training from Lincoln. He runs, he dodges those cars, he gets back on the curb, he brushes himself off. Now he's really mad. He said, if he's still thirsty, he walks in and says, listen, I said, I want a beer and I want it now, I'm thirsty. And the bartender looks around at the crowd. Dumbest dog I've ever seen. There's a people's bar, you stupid dog. Throws him out onto the street, pulls out a gun, shoots him in his hind leg. Yip, 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 yip. Dog runs off. 3 weeks later, that dog comes back to town, wearing a black cast on his left foot, black chaps, a black hat, okay, 2 6-shooters strapped to his side. He limps in, comes up to the door, kicks it open with his good paw there, and says, "I'm looking for the man who shot my paw." Okay? That's one of my favorites. Did I tell you the story about the one-armed fisherman? No. Caught a fish this big. Anyhow, animal and fish stories are my favorite. Motor City Jewelry, about 2 years ago, there was a robbery. I don't know if you knew about this, you people that's in this general area. There's a robbery, but here's how it happened, right? The jeweler is working on some stuff. He's got the jeweler's thing on. He's working on the setting of a ring. All of a sudden, the SWAT van stops on Van Dyke, right opposite the window. And boom, a guy gets out, opens the back door, lets an elephant out. The elephant comes out. And they had $1 million worth of diamonds on display in the window. So the elephant shoves the trunk in the window, breaks it, sucks up all the diamonds. This little guy puts it in a bag, runs back in, locks the elephant back in the SWAT van, gets around, starts taking off, going north on Van Dyke. Well, the guy was so dumbfounded he couldn't think real quick, but all of a sudden he went, "Whoa, they're stealing my jewelry." So he runs over to the phone and says, "Hello, please." He says, "Hurry up, this guy just stole." He says, "Hold it, sir. Take it easy. We're trained professionals. We'll get the culprit. Don't worry about it." He says, "What happened? What happened?" He says, "A SWAT van pulled up." He says, "SWAT van, that's S-W-A-T. What color?" "Blue." "Blue." He says, "But if you can catch it, all you got, he's just he said, "Don't worry, sir, we're trained professionals. We'll find the culprit. Don't worry about it. Give me some more details. What happened?" Guy got up. He says, "Open the back, let an elephant out." "An elephant on Van Dyke? You been on the saucer?" "No, it's an elephant, a great elephant." Took it out. The elephant shoved in the window, took up all of that, put it in the bag, and he started to go. He says, "An elephant? Wait a minute, whoa. We're trained here to identify certain types of elephants. What kind of an elephant was it?" He says, "Well, what do you mean, what kind?" He says, "Well, the Asian elephant has the pointy ears, and the African elephant has big flappy ears. What kind of an elephant was it?" He says, "Geez, I really couldn't tell you. He had a stocking over his face." Okay, the greatest football game ever played. The lion and the elephant always arguing in the jungle. So which is the king of the jungle? They'd fight. One day it'd be the elephant, next day it'd be the lion. So finally one day he said, "Wait a minute. Why don't we solve this like human beings do?" He says, when they want to solve what's the best, they have a Super Bowl game of some kind. Why don't we have a super football game? What do you think of that? The lion says, "Yeah, that sounds good." So he says, "Well, you pick 10 animals, I'll pick 10 animals, we'll get a game up and that'll be it. We'll have 11-11, we'll play a great game, and whoever wins will be the king of the jungle." He says, "Good enough for me." So they do. They get set up and they start to practice, they start picking things out. And so the lion, being very sharp, says, "Listen, let's see, kicker." So he thinks of a donkey right away. So he gets a donkey because a donkey can kick that extra point, kick field goals. He said, "That's the greatest, that's for me." The other guy picks a rhino. The elephant picks a rhino because they're charging fullback type. And so they go through all this picking thing. Well, the world hears about it. Pepsi-Cola hears about it. Coca-Cola hears about it. They decide they're going to sponsor this and make some money out of it. So they do. They get uniforms for the elephant's team, uniforms for the lion's team. They get them their numbers on the back. They get them shoes. They get them helmets. They get them all the equipment. And then on top of that, they said, "Let's build a multi-million-dollar stadium." So they do, right in the middle of Africa. Big stadium. Fit 100,000 people or animals, whichever one to show up for the game, right? So they practice in secret. They got all up at the day of the big game arrives. Boom, the kickoff. First team to receive is the Lions team, and his team gets it. They run it a couple of plays. All of a sudden, he has a pretty tough fullback. They're a gorilla. Gorilla runs through the elephant's team and scores 6 points. But then, of course, what happens? They cannot. Cut. I just blew it. I gave the wrong. This is the greatest sports story, football story I've ever heard. It's about the lion and the elephant, who in the jungle are always battling this, which is the king of the jungle. So one week it'd be the elephant, next week it'd be the lion. They beat each other up. Finally they said, "Wait a minute. the elephant says to the lion, why don't we just settle this like humans do? Let's have a super football game and it will determine, who is the winner by that. Does that sound good? He says, okay, fine. So they start to pick out teams. And so the lion picks out a rhino because he wants a charging fullback. The elephant, being sharp, picks out a donkey first because he knows that if he ever gets a chance for that extra point or field goal, that's going to be the winner of it, right? And so he picks that. And they pick all the rest. They have all the animals. They get their teams going. They're practicing. Well, Pepsi-Cola and Coca-Cola hear about it, so they decide, why don't we sponsor both of these teams? So they do. They get them uniforms. One side takes one company takes one side, the other one takes the other, and they get them uniforms, helmets, shoes, the whole bag. They get practice there. The stadium is pretty good. And then he said, hey, wait a minute, we need a great stadium for this. So they decide to build a 100,000 seating arrangement, Superdome. So they do, and boom, they're all ready for this. Boom, here comes the day, the kickoff. The elephants team kicks off to the lions team. The lions team makes a couple yard gains here and there, but on the second play from scrimmage, boom, the gorilla runs through and scores. But they don't have a good kicker, boom, no extra point. Lions team is ahead 6-0. Right? So the elephant in the back of his head saying, great, that's the first break of the game. Now when we score, of course, we got the greatest kicker, we got that donkey, he's going to get the, boom, kick it, and we got the game, right? So he's thinking, but the game turns out to be a defensive game. After that point, nobody can score. Boom, back and forth, defensive. Get up to the 20 yards, somebody fumbles. Zip over here, somebody fumbles. Zip, somebody. Defensive game, back and forth. First half ends, nothing. Still 6-0. Lions team. Get back in the second half now. Boom, the same thing goes on in that third quarter. Back and forth, defensive game. Nobody can score. They get to the 20, somebody fumbles, or it's an interception. Boom, same thing. Finally, now there's 2 minutes left, and the elephant's getting a little worried. But he's always in the back of his head thinking, wow, I got the best kicker. We got to score, and we got it because he's going to kick that 7-6. That's good enough for me, man. So they're worrying about it. Last 2 minutes, the elephant gets a great play, right? And he moves the ball, and he starts to run. And he runs through the whole line of the Lions team, and he's running, and he looks back, and there's nobody within 30 yards of him. So he gets a little cocky. He says, wait a minute, I better play the clock here. So he looks at his watch. I don't know if he wears a watch, but anyhow, he looks at his watch, and he gets it down. It's 1:30, looks back, nobody there. Gets it down, he's still romping around. 50 seconds, he figures, I'll wait till about 10 seconds left, and then he says, then I'll score. So he looks at 10, might as well start. So he starts to run, he's about a foot away, and all of a sudden he's tripped up and he collapses. He's this far away, about 6 inches away from the goal line. He does not score, and everybody in the other team runs down and jumps on him. Game ends, they lose, 6-0. So the pile up. Now they're all unpiling. Jump. And the elephant is dejected. I lost. I can't believe it. At the bottom of the pile, hanging on to his foot, is a tiny little centipede. And the elephant looks down and says, you're the one? A centipede? Stop me, the greatest animal in the jungle. You a stupid centipede, small, this big. He said, wait a minute. I didn't see you in the first half. Where were you in the first half of the game? Centipede looks up and says, in the locker room, putting my shoes on. Football stories. Stickum Turner, the greatest catch receiver of all time, is walking down the street. Sees a fire. He stops. Hears people yelling and screaming. On the 3rd floor is a lady with a baby, yelling, save my baby, save my baby. And the crowd, drop the baby, we'll catch her down here, don't worry about it. No, I can't do that, liable to kill the baby, you may drop her. Stickum Turner walks over and looks up and says, hey lady, I've been in the pro circuit for 12 years now, haven't missed a pass in 12 years. They call me Stickum Turner. Drop the baby, I'll catch it. Never missed a pass in 12 years. No. And finally, it's getting hotter and hotter. The fire's going, okay, but make sure you catch him. So she throws the baby 3 floors right here, Stickum Turner up. A good spike always helps. Okay, I'm ready for my last one. This guy is a bum. All of his life, did nothing. He finally gets caught robbing a store and he's sent to prison. Sent to prison for 10 years. And so he gets into prison and finally he says, All my life I've been a bum. I couldn't even pass Balos's class in high school. I have trouble in all my classes. They kicked me out of school, you know, and bum me, robbed us. He says, you know what? I'm going to become a good citizen. I said, prison's going to just rehabilitate me. So he decides he's going to go to the library and start his life anew by studying something new every day. So he does. He goes in, he studies, let's see, science. He reads every book. For the first year, he's just reading every book on science. He becomes a genius. He knows everything about science. He knows about the space shuttle. He knows about Einstein's theory. Everything you can know about mathematics and science, he knows. Now, let's see, I always want to be a musician, he says. Goes into the music section. He learns to play all the instruments they got there. He learns to compose. He wants to write like Beethoven. He does. He becomes very good at it. He learns to play the piano, the violin, the clarinet, the trumpet. He learns to compose, write everything. Genius. Now, okay, sports. Okay, he learns to play baseball. He learns to swim like an Olympic swimmer. He learns to play basketball, football, everything. He does that. Masters that. Languages. Okay, I always want to speak languages. He learns to speak 15 languages fluently and every other one just a little bit of. He is a genius in languages. He gets through all of this. It's now 5 years later. He looks around. He says, hey, who am I going to talk to? Because I've become so brilliant, there's nobody I can talk to. I got to have a friend to talk to. And as he's thinking about that, he puts his hand up here. An ant starts to crawl. And he's ready to swat the ant. Wait a minute. Hold on. He doesn't swat the ant. He says, that's the one. I'm going to teach everything that I know to that guy. And so he does. He takes that little ant. And he goes through the same process. For the next 5 years of his term, he starts to teach that ant everything. And he teaches him how to speak languages, swim. He's an Olympic swimmer. He builds a little house for the ant, and so he's got a little swimming pool in there for the ant. The ant becomes just as brilliant as he is, so now he can discuss things with him about philosophy, about science, about music. This ant is phenomenal. And so, as he's doing, he doesn't mind being in prison now because now he's got a friend to talk to. Well, the prison board hears about all this and decides, let's let him out. The guy's been a great citizen, and look what he's done with that ant. That's a really beautiful thing. So they pardon him. They give him $10 and a new suit, and he goes out. Brand new suit, I'm wearing it now. Anyhow, he gets out there and he starts to walk down. He says, I think I'll visit Van Dyke. So he comes to see Balos. He says, I know I was a bum in here, but I visits that teacher, everything's cool. Then he starts to walk out. He says, hey, there's John's Friendly. I used to stop in there once in a while. So he says, I think I will. He's got of course, he's got the little ant in his pocket in his little house here. He goes across to John's Friendly, sits down. I hope the dog was home by that time. Anyhow, he sits down on a stool. He says, hey, bartender, hold it. He says, you want a beer? Yeah, make that 2 beers. Now he's going to have a beer with his buddy, the ant, right? And so as the bartender goes to get the beer, he takes the little ant out, puts him on the bar, and he says, come on out, come on out. Yeah, he's going to bring us a beer. So he comes, he says, now he's going to spring it on the bartender. He's going to start with him first, right? He says, hey, bartender, see this ant? Thank you. Stories, I hope you enjoy this. I hope you enjoy this. This is for you. You taught me most of these stories. I think you'll enjoy it. And thank you, crowd.